Welcome back to another edition of the Walkoff Mariners podcast. I am Jordi Bott, joined as always with Juan Forno. Big week to be a Mariners fan. It finally happened. We won one series. We won another series, swept Cincinnati, took 2-3 in Colorado. The offense looks like they're finally clicking as well. We're getting some good at-bats. The pitching is exactly what we thought it was. All in all, solid week. Juan, how are you feeling about the week we just had?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to jump to conclusions, just like we didn't want to jump to conclusions last week when they were losing games. It's 1 week, and let's hope that it's headed in the right direction. Obviously, the pitching in the rotation was dominant all week. I think the starters had a combined like 1.44 ERA or some bullshit ridiculous number like that, which is great. And then obviously the offense has been putting up a lot more runs. I do feel like the approach has changed pretty drastically at the plate from the beginning of the season to this last week. I don't know if you saw a report, but there was reports that suggested they were relying on iPads a little bit less this week and being more involved in the game instead of going straight to the technology, trying to break things down in game. Which I love. I mean, you got to be in the game. You got to know what's going on. You got to stay invested mentally with what you're doing there. Practice and batting practice or before the game, working on stuff. That's when, technology and stuff comes into play. But at bat during the game feels aggressive to me. If it's a small thing, if you notice something, or if you want to see how a pitch is breaking or how somebody's attacking you with a sequence, I'm okay with that. But, scaling back on that and being more into the game, I think worked. I mean, if that's the case, we saw it, the approaches, the at-bats, the amount of hits, home runs, everything's way up. And I know they didn't face an ace or anybody that was lights out, but they saw some decent arms, Hunter Green, Abbott out of Cincinnati, and they put up runs. It was good to see. I feel good about it, but cautiously optimistic.
Oh my God. That's like the most hockey. That's just
I'm not a Maple Leaf fan.
Cliche, cautiously optimistic. But yeah, they have looked better. The approach, as you were mentioning, is a lot better. My favorite number from the week is that after the Cincinnati series, they walked so much they jumped up to like fourth place in the MLB in walks.
It walks, yeah,
like,
that was crazy.
Insane. And they didn't really slow down when they went to Colorado either. They were just taking pitches. They weren't forcing it. They were just going up with them with the intention, hey, we're going to have a good at bat. And when you do that, that's how you get runs. You don't have to force it. Just go up and have a good AB. There's not much to it.
And I think that's what I was kind of getting at with the approach thing. They're being less aggressive at the plate, and it shows with their walks. Strikeouts are still a little high for sure, but I can live with that if it's balancing out walks and power, right? Being a little bit more selective with the pitches that are coming, and working in a bat. I've always been especially when you go and face a team 4 times in 4 days or 3 in 3 days, whatever the case is. I've always been a major supporter of running up a pitcher's pitch total, get to the bullpen, especially if you get to the bullpen like the Mariners did day one, and now they got to go use 3 arms, multiple innings, then you're exhausting your bullpen, right? Which is only going to lead to future runs throughout the series. So I love the approach they took this week, and I hope they continue that. It looked good to me.
My favorite thing that I saw last week was with Julio Rodriguez, who I'm sure we've heard it a lot, has no home runs yet. But that being said, he actually just went up there. He's seeing the ball well. He's still having good at-bats because we've seen him in previous years when he's not hitting with power. He's just going up and he's just forcing it. He's just swinging so hard. But he was just going up there and he was just like, hey, I'm going to have a good at-bat, going to make good contact on good pitches. And you do that, the home runs are going to come. Like, the guy's jacked. You don't have to worry about it, but he is in his head now that he's like, hey, I'm just going to have these smart at bats, make good contact, and they'll come. And we're seeing some maturity from him, which is probably my favorite part of the week, other than taking all of those wins. That was really nice too.
I think that's a great point, man. Like, you're right. He's such a unicorn athlete. Like, just go out there and hit. You're a pro hitter, man. Like, this guy is one of the best hitters in the league right now. And the power will come with it, man. He had a bunch of doubles. A couple balls where you thought maybe it'll come. Those will come. He doesn't need to press. Just keep hitting. He improved his average from like 185 to 265 within a week. And I know it's early.
Which also, yeah, but it also shows how early it is to not be panicking when we get guys like Julio with a 188 average. It's like, yeah, but let's
let it work itself out.
And it's back up to 275.
Yeah, he goes 6 for 10 across 2 games, and you're like, oh, never mind, we're good.
Especially a guy who's capable of doing that too. It's not rare. Like the guy's been a streaky hitter his whole career.
You have no reason to think that he's not going to turn it around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, not concerned about him. What other takeaways do you have from the week?
I mean, and the pitching is lights out, man. I think this is like, we always expected the pitching to be super good. I don't think we expected it to be this good. The bullpen as well has been pretty much lights out, especially in that, it got a little bit dicey there with Cincinnati in the one, I think it was game 2. Where Julio threw that guy out at third, threw out that guy, Dela Cruz at third. Before that
was, by the way, it's been so long since we recorded. I forgot about that play. Incredible. That was ridiculous. And if I were a Reds fan, because like I feel like that's something that should have happened to the Mariners. I've been watching this team so much that that's something that we would have to go through and be like, God damn it, why us? Because that's not. Like most players are gonna slow up when they get home scoring, and also you're catching one of the fastest, if not the fastest guy in the league. Like that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, but it's nice to be on the other end of that for once.
Totally, be on a lucky side too. And there was 2 instances this week, so that would be one. And I loved that game. I loved watching that game because it felt like very playoff atmosphere. The guys were intense. It was very tight. I loved that game. That was probably my favorite game of the week. But then
Ryan Stanek diving to make an out,
right? Like, okay, I see you, Ryan Stanek. Unfortunately,
it wasn't graceful. It definitely didn't help the cause for the pitchers or athletes crowd. But
oh no, it did not.
You like to see the intensity,
but you love to see the intensity, and you know that these guys are buying in and wanting to win, right? And then yesterday with Demo in left field robbing the home run, eventually they ended up losing anyways. But it's like, oh, the fan did interfere, and we did get that lucky break, and this could potentially lead to a win. Because had that gone over or been ruled a home run, that was it. That was game. We didn't get a chance in the 10th. But it's nice to see a couple lucky breaks and lead to 5 wins, 1 loss this week. We can live off 5 wins, 1 loss a week.
And I think there's something that comes with, like when you're a great team, you get those bounces, you get that luck, you notice it more. And I think that's what we're starting to see is this team's getting that luck, but it's also because they're doing well. I think it's just one of those things. It's almost like the baseball gods kind of evening out. They're like, hey, we'll give you one. You guys are out there. You're playing hard. Yeah. You've earned one.
We like what you're doing. Here, let me give you a little nugget, just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? You got no run. You haven't allowed many runs in Colorado. We'll give you an easy one, which is also insane. What was the statistic that I sent you there?
Just about that game ever to go through 9 complete innings
in with Coors Field history. It's the first game in Coors Field history that went 9 innings with the third game that went 9 innings with no runs scored for either teams.
They had runners on the entire time. They just couldn't get one clutch hit, right? And, if this was last week, that game would have been frustrating as hell. But because they won 5, you're like, all right, now we'll give you a pass.
Yeah, you take 5 out of 6. You can have a stinker. It would have been nice to jump on Cal Quantrill, but it's nice to make the Canadian look good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have some love for our boy from up north.
Yeah, it's the PNW respect to Vancouver.
Exactly. All right, so 5 of 6 from Colorado. Upcoming, we've got Texas, which does it feel weird that this is our first AL West matchup of the season?
Yeah, I mean, what are we, 22 games in now, I think, 11-11. Just facing a division rival now. Like, we still got games with Angels and Athletics as well. Like, I don't know how. Look, I understand why they're doing the extended interleague play so that you can get, these superstar talents like Ohtani or Julio in these different markets. And get their fans a chance to see these guys play, which is really cool. But it does take away from that competition and that rivalry within your division. So crazy to me, but excited to see how the boys perform against these teams this week versus the teams they played last week. Rangers and Diamondbacks are not the Reds and the Rockies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're legit. That being said, I would have much preferred if we had the Astros this week instead. I would love to get some, because right now the Astros are trash,
Mhm.
and it could be like last year. It's going to come down to wins in the division, like matchup wins. So it would be nice to jump on them, just
Yeah.
kick them while they're down, get some of those early wins. So if we are tied at the end of the season, they're like, well, Mariners that early series,
Bottom early.
but that's a
Yeah.
moot point. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But Texas, the nice thing is we could end the week in first place.
Yeah. And I think like you're right, man. Like it would be nice to get on these guys a little bit when they're still trying to get healthy. Their rotations are a mess. I know they got Blanco in Houston and Verlander's back healthy now. Texas is struggling. They called up that Leiter kid, their number 2 prospect, and he got shelled, man.
He got sent down right away too. He's
Yeah,
down
it
now.
was no.
I'm just looking at the probables,
We got
and
Gilbert, Miller,
I'm
and
looking at their probables. Yeah, we're starting Gilbert, Miller, and then Castillo. We're going up against Dunning, sitting at a 391 ERA.
it's not there.
Yeah, John Gray, who has a 315 ERA, which surprises me. I don't know. I feel like he's over the hill, but he can still be pretty
He
nasty.
slung it a little bit last night or last week or last year.
And Andrew Haney. So they've got guys who
They've got
they
pro
could be. Yeah, these are
like
MLB pitchers we're going up against for sure.
high-end fourth starter guys.
Yeah. Yes, but this
But
is
beatable.
also these are games that we should win, I think. We've got Gilbert, Miller, Castillo. Gilbert and Miller are two best pitchers, best starters so far this year. I don't think there's much disagreement in that.
I don't think anybody
Castillo just coming off his best start of the season, shutting down. Yes, it was a Colorado lineup, but it was still in
but it was in Colorado.
Yeah, you can shut down you can throw up a bunch of plebs, and it's still impressive to shut them down in Colorado.
Oh, for sure. It just takes a couple fly balls. And I know the ball wasn't carrying so much that evening because it was literally snowing. How crazy is that?
It was pretty wet, that ball.
Laying in the snow. No, the pitching matchup for sure. You got to worry about their 3-headed monster there with Seager, Simeon, and Adolis Garcia. But if you get through those 3 and you take care of the rooks with Carter and Wyatt, you'll be all right. I mean, there's no reason to believe that these 3 starters can't take care of business and limit the runs.
Well, and the nice thing is Langford hasn't really gotten going yet.
No.
So it's another nice thing about getting him early. He hasn't hit his stride yet, so we can take advantage of that right now. Carter he also got off to a slow start, but he's had a good couple games his last few, so that's he might be a scary guy, but right now if you can get rid of those 4 guys, yeah, this is a series we should at least take 2 of 3.
Yeah, I'm hoping for 4 and 2 this week. You go ahead and drop 1 to Arizona, drop 1 to Texas. I can live with that. I mean, 5 and 1, great. But as long as we get 4, I'm content.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. I'll even take 300. We're going up against the 2 teams that were in the World Series. You walk away from that 500, you're still looking like a good team.
Yeah, split is not the worst case scenario here.
No. All right. What do we got next here? So we're discussing that. Right. This one. All right. So I know it's still early in the season and all, but JP Crawford not hitting too well. Obviously, we know he's going to turn it around, but until he does, do you think we should be moving him out of the leadoff spot?
I think that's an interesting take, and I think if you had an obvious replacement in a lineup structure that made sense, I think you got to explore it. I think JP is a professional and handle it well, and honestly, he may react to it in a way that's like, okay, fuck this, it's time to go to work and fix this and start hitting. Maybe it's motivation to put him in 6, 7, 8, 9. And see how he fares. I don't love Julio in the leadoff spot personally.
I don't like it either. I don't think you can kind of mix it up. Julio is the number 2 guy. I don't think he wants to be a leadoff hitter. He wants people on base. Also, he's starting to get into it. He's getting into his groove. I don't think you can just shuffle him around.
No, and I don't want him playing with his approach either. So, if you feel like fucking Rojas. I don't know why I was confusing him with Cabby there. They're like the same guy to me for some reason. If Rojas continues to do what he's doing, or even if you decide to keep up Class A, Class A is definitely a leadoff hitter for sure. He is the definition of a leadoff hitter that adds a little bit of pop as well. We haven't seen it play out yet, but I love the kid. I love his speed. I love how he affects the offense. He's been a spark plug, even though he's hitting like 220. And his always just seemed to be involved when things are going right for the offense. Give the kid a couple more months to progress or whatever, but I think he is the future left field leadoff hitter for the Seattle Mariners.
Oh, he's definitely got the makeup of one. I don't think I'd want to throw him in right now. Just a few games into his career for sure.
Lock him, throw him in.
Probably not the best. I think your two options, yeah, you mentioned Rojas, who one, I'm loving Rojas so far this year. He came in last year too and was like, oh, these guys, I came in, they had me change a little bit. And so far it's working out. And now I've kind of got this like optimism that I'm like, hey, it could work out for us. This could be our guy because we deserve one. We deserve a guy who comes in and we turn him around. So maybe that is Josh Rojas. And if it does, heck yeah, like he'd be terrific, especially if he's a full-time third baseman. We've got that solved.
I mean, the defense looked solid too there at third base, right? So there's not a whole lot of reason. I don't know what his lefty-righty splits look like because I know they're still platooning a little bit. But like even defensively, I'm like, oh, it doesn't feel like there's a massive drop off. Like he's made some hell of plays, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, well they've been saying he is a natural third baseman, so that's his comfortable position. So if you're keeping him in his comfortable position, heck yeah. Which, by the way, off the top of your head, how many third basemen are leading off their team in the league? Can you think of any off the top of your head?
It's not usually a leadoff position.
No.
Great question.
This isn't a trick. I don't know either. I can't think of any right now.
Nothing comes to mind.
Because Jose Ramirez is number 2 or 3, no, so he's not the leadoff hitter.
Who could it be? Does this exist?
I don't know. It just occurred to me because I was like, that's gotta be a weird little quirk to have a third baseman. Let's Google it right now. Maybe Chris Morel? Was he leading off for the Cubs?
No, he hits the 4-hole, bro.
Chris Morel's the number 4 hitter. That's wild.
Oh, he's got some pop, dude. Christopher Morel can hit, dude.
I do love Morel, but he's a number 3 hitter.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are leadoff hitters.
Right. Well,
that was a fun little experiment.
Maybe we'll go and be the first.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If we do that, heck, I don't care. I don't care what position you play. If you're getting on base in the leadoff spot, setting the table for Julio, and then let's say JP does start hitting, right? That's a phenomenal number 3 hitter. If you could put JP Crawford in the 3 spot.
I mean, fuck. There's a lot of guys right now that the lineup is not set for me. I think right now, if I was to put out a lineup against Texas tomorrow, it would be Josh Rojas at third base, obviously, Julio center. In the 3-hole, I think I'm going Ty France right now, to be honest. He's been
hitting the ball well.
Right. Like he's just putting together good at bats. And even when he gets out, I'm like, damn, that's a line drive, just happens to be right at the right fielder. You go Cal in 4, Haniger in 5. 6 would be JP. 7 would be Polanco. Who am I missing? Oh, fucking DH. Who do we want DHing?
I think you still got to stick with Garver. Or Demo has been hitting pretty well.
Yeah, honestly, Haniger. DH.
Yeah.
Demo in right field.
DH, because you don't want to put Dylan Moore as a DH.
No.
He's too valuable in the field.
Haniger DH, Demo in right field, Clase in left. I don't know who has the better arm between the two of them. But if you have that defensive alignment, I mean, with the exception of like Polanco at second, like you're pretty solid. That's not bad.
And Polanco made some nice plays last week.
He did until he booted 2 yesterday. So that's why I'm kind of like,
It was in Colorado. Who cares?
Yeah, well, they were also
if it happens in Colorado, it doesn't happen in real life. That's the baseball.
Yeah, one run did come around to score on that booted ball, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Can we just discuss what's going on with the Rockies real quick? Because they're probably the most interesting team with some of these news stories. Have you seen what's going on with them before we went there?
No.
Is first off, okay, so I can't remember who they were playing, but they basically had no one left on the bench. So they needed to pinch a runner on third base. They put Kyle Freeland in, their
Oh, did
opening
he
day
get hurt?
starter. Yeah, he got hurt trying to score on a wild pitch. He was out. And then a few days later, their I think it was their hitting coach posted they were on the Delta flight and they let him into the cockpit and he posted it on Instagram. And so now he's getting investigated by the FAA.
Jesus. What are these teams doing? I saw a post the other day where the Oakland Athletics were flying coach. They were like on an Alaska flight with everybody else. And then like their duffel bags, like their team provided duffel bags that they travel with, were coming through the fucking carousel with everybody else's luggage. What are we doing?
This is straight out of the movie Major League.
Bro,
which is funny.
They had their own
they're
plane.
already moving.
Major League had their own plane, dude. It was falling apart, but they still had their own fucking plane, man. They were flying coach with everybody else. Dude, that has to be a security risk. These guys are professional Major League ball players. You can't have them amongst us commoners. That's crazy.
Real quick. Okay, so all of these like quirky stories with the Athletics and the Rockies. Would you rather have your team suck and have all of this ridiculous shit happening? Or would you rather just not be good? Be like the Pirates or the Cardinals where you're just floating under 500 under the radar?
Well, I think it depends on what. Yeah, that's a tough question because part of me is like, I want to write a fucking book about my time with the Athletics. Let me make money off the fucking publishing deal for sure. But then a part of me, like the player side of me, is like, oh man, every fucking headline that comes out, I just want to.
It's always something. What about as a fan? Would you rather the team you cheer for just not win, or they don't win but they have these? They're just the absolute joke of the league with all these ridiculous headlines.
No, just be bad. I'm okay with being bad. We're Mariners fans. We've been there. We've felt that. I know what that's like. But these headlines are embarrassing, dude.
I'd want like the ridiculousness. That's also the Ottawa Senators fan in me. Like when you get the headlines where your team is like got a video out of them shit talking their coaches in an Uber or something, or else your owner is hiring private investigators for an opponent. Like that's showbiz. That's what that is.
Nuts, dude. It's nuts. I think these teams need to be run a lot better. A lot better. I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking like, man, I don't know shit about running an MLB franchise, but I know John Fisher's not doing it right. I know that they need to have a plane. Like, are you kidding me? I've flown coach. There's fucking 8 first-class seats, which means 75% of the roster is flying fucking regular next to the screaming baby and the dude that should have bought 2 seats but didn't. I'm not fat shaming. I need 2 seats most of the time. I'm very broad. But like, fuck, dude, what are we doing? And then if you're flying fucking Oakland to Miami, that's like a 6-hour flight.
And imagine making millions of dollars and you still have to sit beside someone who stinks.
Dude, there's a chance that fucking Rooker is sitting there next to a kid playing MLB The Show on his PSP as Rooker on the airplane. Like, that's how fucking insane this is.
Okay, look, I love Brent Rooker, okay? Nobody's using him on the show.
In theory, it could happen. Like if you're playing against somebody and it's like a random
it would be me. I'm one of Brent Rooker's biggest fans, and I don't, so I can't believe anyone's out there using him.
Bro, can I be honest with you? If Brent Rooker is sitting next to me on a flight ever, and it is possible because I fly a lot, and apparently they're flying coach this year too. I swear to God, I'm pulling out my phone and being like, hey, I'm going to play as you, dude. Good call, bad call. What do you think?
Hell yeah. I'd be like, know what you do is you take out like your phone or whatever you're playing on and you go up against him and then you go, what should I throw?
Like fucking slide her down, bro. I can't get around on that shit.
He's like, oh, I'm working on this, so I definitely can't handle it.
Yeah, throw me a back foot slider. I can't fucking hit it.
I would also bring up the fact so Brent Rooker owes me because I was holding on to him in fantasy for the longest time. I'm like, this guy's gonna be great. The
Because good
second
luck
I
to you.
dropped him, he had his 30 home run season. So that's on me. You're welcome, Brent Rooker.
You kind of cut bait too early, or you did him a favor.
I had him for quite a few years. Um, One last thing here from around the league. You want to bring up our fun Yankees moment if you want to describe that because I'm trying to pull up the quote from the umpire.
What the fuck was that? Okay, if you're watching this and you haven't seen the clip yet, I assume you've seen the clip because it's everywhere right now. But Aaron Boone, like 7 minutes into the game today, got ejected for not saying anything. So player went and checked his swing, got hit by a pitch. They checked to see if he went. Umpire at first base said no, didn't swing, hit by pitch. Aaron Boone didn't like the call. He said that's a full swing. That's got to be a strike, not a hit by pitch. And so he got a warning immediately from the umpire. Said, I'm doing my job. I checked. If you say another word, you're gone. Aaron Boone says, okay, fair enough. Let me back up. Guy right behind him starts going at the umpire, and the umpire fucking throws Boone, even though it was a fan in the audience that was beaking the umpire. And then he admitted, he was like, yeah, you're probably right. You're still gone. What the fuck? It's not even Angel Hernandez this time. The fuck are we doing?
So I found it. I got his quote right here. Okay, so his quote: Aaron Boone is the manager of the New York Yankees and is responsible for everything that happens in that dugout. I don't want to eject a ball player. We need to keep them in the game. That's what the fans pay to see. Aaron Boone runs the Yankees. He got ejected. Apparently, what he said was there was a fan right above the dugout. This isn't my first ejection. In the entirety of my career, I've never ejected a player on a manager for something that a fan has said. I understand that's going to be part of a story or something like that because that's what Aaron was portraying. I heard something come from the far end of the dugout. I had nothing to do with his area, but the manager of the Yankees. So he's the one that had to go.
Bro, it's on camera. It was a
Yeah,
put in
he
the
still didn't
stands.
even say that. He could have just been like, "Yeah, I watched it back. I goofed that one." But he
Yeah,
was like, he's
that's
just
the issue.
standing firm.
And the thing is, like, we wouldn't judge these guys nearly as hard as we do as fans if they would just own their shit, right? Had he gone back and looked at the replay and said, "Oh, I see the fan mouth moving and Aaron's not," my bad. I thought it was Aaron. I see now that it wasn't. My bad. Bro's dumb as fuck. What are we doing here? You can't eject a manager. And I get like managers doesn't really matter because you can call on the phone from the clubhouse and say, hey, this is what I want to do to whoever, like your bench manager or whatever. That's fine. He'll be in the tunnel telling him what to do. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, it's better the manager than a player, but it's still dumb as fuck, dude.
Oh,
Awful.
I love it. Just drunk with power.
These umpires need to be put in check, man. And it's like the shit is like it now is popping up outside the baseball world, right? So not only were you embarrassing yourselves to the baseball world, but now that other sports fans are kind of cluing into how entertaining the stupidity of MLB umpires is right now, that's a bad look for the MLB. That's a really bad look.
You know what we need is a Wes McCauley, right? He's the NHL ref that always does like the animated calls. He's like 5 minutes for fighting. They need an MLB umpire that's just funny.
Just that
They need a clown
we need an umpire that doesn't take it too seriously but gets it right.
that like gets into a fist fight with the fanatic or something. That's what I want to see.
But I think it's like a perfect example of like everything that's wrong with America. Stop putting dinosaurs in charge of making the rules. No different than the US election, no different than MLB umpires. These guys have been doing it for 40 years. We're not for sure whether or not they can see. I know that sounds ableist, but look, when you're an umpire, you need to be able to see. That's just, there's no blind umpires. You can't hear a strike. I'm sorry.
Arguable.
Like, let's stop. Let's fucking fresh blood because it's always the young kids that seem to get these perfect scores on umpire tracker.
Should we just say screw it and stop doing a Mariners podcast and start doing an umpires podcast? Because that's what the people want.
Dude, if we just had a podcast or like a monthly special of just tearing apart umpires, I would be super on board.
Oh, until Rob Manfred sends out like assassins to kill us.
No, they would send a cease and desist first, and that would make us go viral, man. I'm ready. Yo, get your shit on Sirius XM up in Canada. The best thing that could happen to your family is you die. The Canadian comedy community will take care of you, dude. It'll only take care of you for like a month, and then they'll forget about you for sure. But in that month, your royalty streams will go through the fucking roof. $1 million, easy.
I just want to be mentioned on a murder mystery podcast.
Mariner's Murder Mystery Podcast.
Which, okay, so
I'm
by
gonna
the way,
find myself a white girl from Seattle to be my new co-host.
I was listening to some baseball podcast this week, and one of them ended and it went into a new podcast. It went into a murder mystery podcast for some reason. I don't know why, but I just assumed I was listening to a baseball podcast, and it was like, this episode deals with terrorism. And I was like, holy shit, they are taking this Rockies thing in the cockpit seriously.
You could have talked about how like 9/11 games were canceled. That would have been an easier task.
No, that's just what got me. It's because like they were talking about it, and I was like, "Well, wow, they're really taking this serious."
That's crazy. That's funny though. That you just stumbled on thinking it was baseball.
Well, it because Spotify put it on when I was done listening to another one.
It's an aggressive jump.
I know it was weird. All right. Last thing before we go, you want to discuss this? Why don't you take it away with the saves?
Yeah, I have some thoughts because, like, I first of all, I hate the fact that you start with a runner on second base in extra innings. It's not baseball to me. It changes the dynamic completely, right? Especially as a pitcher, runner on second, nobody out versus no runners on, nobody out. Your approach is completely different because you got to try and keep that runner from getting to third base. And then if he does get to third base, you got to keep that runner there. It changes the dynamic of the game. And I think it's bullshit that a closer will come in extra innings to try and get a save, and then they get pinned with a blown save, even though their ERA is not charged for that one run that exists over there, is weird to me. I'm not trying to make excuses for Munoz this week because he didn't get a single out and let 3 hits. So, I think he would have lost that game anyways. But I do think if that one runner on second base that starts there is the deciding run, I don't think you can pin a pitcher negatively with a negative stat. That's my opinion.
But I don't totally disagree, although it's still the same as if like your starter or something lets the leadoff runner on second, and then you bring in your closer or something. If that runner scores, it's still a blown save. So it's pretty much the same thing.
No, you're right. You're right. But it is a team sport. So in that case, like an inherited runner, and teams do track that. How many inherited runners do you strand as a reliever? It's usually high strikeout guys that are very good at it because they're not giving up the contact. But their team is not responsible for that runner being on second. Like nobody on the team put that runner there. Like maybe the offense by not scoring enough, but what if it's 11-11? Like it just, to me, like nobody on your team was responsible for that runner, and we're not counting it against their ERA. Why would it count towards a blown save? You do make a good point.
I never thought about it, but I feel like at this point it's just one of those things. Like you're a closer, that's you just
fucking figure it out.
Part of the job. It's like, hey, just so you know, you're always going to be at fault, even when it's in a ridiculous situation like this.
Yeah, good luck becoming the next Trevor Hoffman or Mariano Rivera. That's done. That doesn't exist in the game anymore.
Well, especially now that it's more just throw out your best guy whenever.
Yeah, no. And it's too bad because like records are fun to chase. And I think a lot of records are pretty fucking secure for a very long time. The fun
saves,
ones.
Saves
home runs,
definitely secure.
It's
home runs, not until Haniger heats up.
I think he's a little old to go chase that, man. If
juice.
If Trout has a revitalization, or if Judge stays on the same path, maybe Soto might have a chance.
Old too, though.
Judge is a little old. He'd have to stay consistent.
Yeah, he'd have to put up like multiple 60 home runs
like
again.
50, 60 home runs. Yeah, totally. It's crazy though. Like now think about how hard it is to hit that many home runs in a career versus like when these guys were doing it. You're like, fuck, man, maybe these guys were significantly better than we actually gave them credit for. Damn. The numbers that Barry Bonds put up, juice or not, are fucking insane.
Although they weren't facing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs consistency. Like the amount, like the average fastball speed has just shot up in even like the last 5 years.
Do you think I know
So
we're
these
running
guys,
long here, but that just gave me the best question. Do you think with how many arms are literally exploding right now, do you think pitchers are going to start, learning how to be effective at like that 92 to 95 range instead of gassing and spinning as hard as they can?
I've been seeing some discussions about this, and there's a lot of guys who are like, this is what they got to start doing. And then there's also the people who are like, well, they're just gonna find other guys who are willing to explode their elbows and throw it 100 miles an hour. But that being said, I think there are gonna be some guys who are gonna kind of take it a little easier, and they're gonna get the results. And once you start getting those results, that's when you start being like, all right, maybe we just got to go back to the traditional,
Yeah.
locating well, moving pitches, like bring in the guys like the Hallidays and the Maddoxes, obviously not as good as them because not many players are, and then bring in a flamethrower to close out the game. I think we're going to see that come back.
Right. Because if you have a closer throwing 100 for, 15 pitches, 1 inning, then it's
Yeah,
not,
your Billy Wagner's, that's fine.
that's fine. But I think like, and it doesn't quite translate to the MLB because they're all professional. But growing up, there was people who threw, and then there was people who pitched, and the people who threw just threw hard, and they just threw it by people. And then there's people who pitched, like the Greg Maddoxes, where it's like, hey, I'm throwing an 86-mile-an-hour changeup. This is where I'm throwing it. You'll still swing through. Learn how to pitch instead of just relying on being able to blow a guy by. I hope that is the case, man, because I want to see these good pitchers stay healthy.
And I still think the pitches are still going to be like the average fastball speed is still going to be a lot higher. Like it's still going to be sitting around like your 95 and stuff. Whereas like back then it was like 91, 92. But I think we're going to start seeing guys who have that command and control combination where it's just, hey, we're going to throw some good strikes. Even if they make contact, it's not going to be good contact.
Couldn't agree more. Fucking take us home, buddy.
Well, that is going to be all for our show this week. Join the discussion in the comments if you want to talk about what you think of the pitching things or what you think of Brent Rooker. Feel free to do that. You can also join the discussion on our Instagram at Walkoff Mariners. Enjoy the games this week. Once again, we got Texas and Arizona. They're going to be fun ones. Have yourself a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.